Okay, everyone, welcome back to Gold Derby for our final Oscar slugfest of the 2020/2021 season. A lot of shockers, also a lot of predicted winners. My name is Marcus James Dixon. I'm here with Zach Laws and Daniel Montgomery, and you guys both tied for the #1 spot amongst our fierce
which is the only list that
team.
matters. No other list matters.
I think you got 19 out of 24. Right? I don't have it in front of me, but you got 19 out of 23. So what do you want to talk about? What did you get right that everyone else got wrong?
Well, I'll start by just explaining that we got 19 out of 23, and the top 34 users out of all we got had almost 10,000 users. Numbers 1 through 34 got 20 right. So there was like a 34-way tie for first place in terms of accuracy percentage. And then Zach and I are basically like in another like 75-way tie for 35th place. But I think the big one for both Zach and I was Hopkins. That was, and y'all during the pre-show were saying it's like, no, it's, and Marcus, you were saying during the pre-show, if I'd been on during another segment with Daniel and Zach, they'd be convincing me to go with Anthony Hopkins. And now you're wishing you did. So
I was so mad because those people in my little group convinced me that it was Chadwick, and I'm like, oh yeah, it is Chadwick. I'm very easily persuadable.
Yeah, my thing was that like I agreed with Charlie that Chadwick could still absolutely easily win. Like I thought, and I even thought like going into the night, it's like, oh yeah, it's probably going to happen. But I did think that Spirit Awards, not Spirit Awards itself, because if the only thing I had to go on was Spirit Awards, I wouldn't have switched to Anthony Hopkins. But it was like the sea change was, I could sort of see how Ma Rainey had really weakened and how it had really soft support at all these places, except for Critics' Choice and except for the SAG Awards, and for the industry, like the BAFTAs to go for Anthony Hopkins. Picked plenty of Americans when the Americans are the front runner, so like that couldn't only explain it. And then Chadwick losing at the Spirit Awards, that was the last one that said like, okay, yeah, Ma Rainey is a weak film contender, not a weak film, because I think that's a fantastic film, but as a contender, just like the industry, other than the Screen Actors Guild, just wasn't as into it as like we had initially thought they would be, and as we thought they would be for Chadwick.
Yeah, I had been predicting Hopkins since the nominations were announced, and I saw how.
Yeah, so he gets extra bragging rights because I only switched on like Thursday.
But it was based on, I mean, it was like one of those things where I thought, okay, I'll do this for right now, and then I'll see how the season shakes up, right? Because it's probably going to be Chadwick, but The Father had so dramatically overperformed in terms of our expectations for it, whereas Ma Rainey's had drastically underperformed. I mean, I can remember doing Slugfest with you guys where I was like, oh, Ma Rainey's is basically in 6th place for Best Picture. And I think that the tally was really close, not just between Hopkins and Boseman, but also Riz Ahmed, just based on the fact that Sound of Metal also picked up some hardware, some major prizes. Ma Rainey's did as well. They each won 2 technical awards. So I think that there was a lot of goodwill towards those 2 performances. I just, you had this sense of people saying over and over and over again, I know Chadwick Boseman's going to win, but I wish Anthony Hopkins would. And so I'm going to vote for him. Mm-hmm. I think there was just, look, I know that there's a lot of people who are disappointed that Chadwick Boseman did not win tonight. And truth be told, I'm really sad that he's not an Oscar winner as well. But he does not need an Academy Award to cement his status as a legendary actor. He already was one, and he always will be one. And so even though he's not going to have, the term Oscar winner Chadwick Boseman next to his name, it's not going to do anything to diminish the impact that he has had on the art of motion picture acting. He will always be an all-timer from here on out.
And the culture too, because Ma Rainey, as great a performance as it is from Chadwick, and it's the much more kind of Oscar-y performance that they'd be likely to recognize. Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther which honestly is a performance that would have been worthy of an Oscar nomination. But that's an iconic movie star role and a cultural moment that will survive him and probably anyone else in that film who's still living. Like I'm more disappointed that Anthony Hopkins wasn't there, and I'm more disappointed that they decided, the producers said, oh, Chadwick's a lock for best actor. They probably thought, so let's end the night with Chadwick, and then they end with Anthony Hopkins winning for a freaking amazing performance and then not showing up. And then, like, I'm happy to accept this award on Anthony Hopkins' behalf. Good night.
Yeah.
It was, and it kind of shafted Nomadland a little bit too, because weird. Here you have this beautiful film, this Best Picture frontrunner, that is such an unusual, beautiful, tender, uncharacteristic kind of Oscar movie, and they give Best Director in the first hour, and then they give Best Picture like three categories before last. It's like they knew it was going to win those, and it didn't, and they thought no one would care, which just feels like such a silly, especially because it's owned by ABC, which owns Searchlight, which produced Nomadland, which is showing on Disney owned Hulu. Like, give Nomadland some love out of just self-preservation.
Yeah, like, talk about synergy, right? That was I think that for all of the mystery surrounding how they were actually going to do this ceremony, I thought overall it was one of the best ceremonies I'd ever seen, even with that weird stuff at the end where, like, Rita Moreno comes out to present Best Picture before the acting winners have been announced. It was like, wait, what's going on here?
It's like if the Grammys gave out Best Album of the Year before Best Pop Solo Performance. It's just bonkers.
Yeah, because I feel like
I'm like, oh, did I miss the actor and actress? Like, did I go to the bathroom and miss something?
And I feel like if they had put the acting wins first, and you could have seen Frances win, it would have, like, because there was a moment there when Nomadland lost cinematography where I thought, is this actually going to win Best Picture at the end of the night? Because, just from doing the math, we all kind of assumed that its 3 victories would be picture, director, cinematography. So when it lost one of those, it was like, okay, is it going to win just picture and director, or is Chloe Zhao just going to be the first person since Mike Nichols for The Graduate to win Best Director and the film wins nothing else? Like, so I feel like Frances winning would have, before Best Picture was announced, would have made us go,
that would have sealed the deal. That would have sealed the deal. Yeah.
In the same way that Bong Joon-ho winning director last year for Parasite made us all go, okay, this is going to happen.
Okay, Parasite's winning.
Yeah.
So Nomadland wins the most with 3, and then there's a 6-way tie.
Five. Nomadland broke the tie, so there are only 5 films with 2 apiece, I think, unless I'm missing one.
No, there's 6.
Okay.
So there's The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, Soul, and Sound of Metal.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. And then some one-time winners were Minari for Yuh-jung, Promising Young Woman for a screenplay, Tenet for visual effects. Can we talk about Yuh-jung? Did she give the best speech of the night? I think so. And I'm so glad she traveled from Korea to be here so that she could make fun of Brad Pitt producing her film, but not actually being there on the set. I loved that.
Yeah, that was a beautiful speech. I mean, I really, I was hesitant to predict her at the beginning until she won at SAG and then at BAFTA. But I mean, like, her acceptance speeches have been one of the highlights of this season. And I think that she gave maybe my favorite speech of the night. There were a lot of contenders for that one. I mean, Thomas Winterberg's speech and, Chloe Zhao's speech. So many of them were just so emotional and wonderful. But I thought Yuh-jung really stole the show with this.
Yeah, that was a delightful moment. And she's been giving delightful moments all season, so that was not surprising. But yeah, that was an incredibly heartening thing. And the first, and since Stephen Yeun didn't win Best Actor, now currently the only Korean actor to win an acting Oscar. So History was made there, which was very lovely for a very deserved performance. And Minati got to go home with at least one Oscar. So
we were talking in our group chat about how a lot of us missed seeing the clips, and instead of doing clips, they would have the presenter just gush about how much they loved each of the presenters, and at times it got a little cringy and awkward. What did you guys think? Because some people in the chat were like, "No, I love this," and others were like, "I hate this."
I had mixed feelings about it. I kind of liked it early on. Like I liked the idea of kind of singling out each performer, even if they're not showing clips. But then when they were doing something similar for like every single category, it's like, well, like we asked the production designers what their dog had for breakfast, and this is what they all said. And it's just like, you know, I'd much rather see production design. If you're going to give me this award, you know, show the production design. And
the one that I thought was kind of the strangest was, I think it was the one Halle Berry did. I can't remember exactly what category, but she was saying like, this nominee worked with this nominee on this film, and he used to get coffee for the nominee on this. Like they were trying.
I think that was production design. Yeah. I think she had two.
They were trying to connect them all, and I get what they were doing. I don't think it worked as well as they thought it would.
She did production design and cinematography, and I remember cinematography because she pronounced Eric Messerschmitt's name about 2 or 3 different ways, starting with Messenger Schmidt. So congratulations to Eric Messenger Schmidt. So that happened. Eric Messerschmidt, cinematographer on Mindhunter. So I'm very happy he has an award.
Mm-hmm. And a very deserving win too. I mean, I think, you know, the cinematography in Mank is just gorgeous. And I know a lot of people, you know, we were all predicting Nomadland would win that. And that would have been a deserving winner as well. But I think, you know, the technical achievement of Mank is pretty astounding. So I'm glad that it like won a couple of prizes when it could have just kind of gone home empty-handed.
I pointed out on Twitter the irony that with that cinematography win, Mank won more Oscars than Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Which overall, it's like ridiculous that Mank has more Oscars than Citizen Kane. But like looking at what Mank was and what achieved, even if people didn't like Mank as a film overall, it's hard to really argue against the production design and cinematography wins. Like it was beautifully designed and it was beautifully shot. So I don't think anyone who had problems with the film had problems with those aspects of the film. So I think the Oscars really threaded the needle nicely with what films it awarded and what it awarded them for. It didn't go overboard for anybody. It really singled out achievements on particular films where they made sense.
I will say overall the Gold Derby odds were pretty good. 18 correct, 5 wrong, and the 5 that collectively as experts, editors, users, the 5 we got wrong were documentary short. We had Concerto winning instead of Colette.
And Concerto had just moved over Latasha on like the last day. But we would have been wrong.
Gold Derby got wrong best song. We had Speak Now instead of Fight For You. Fight For You was actually down 4th place.
4th, yeah.
Very strange. What else did we miss? We missed cinematography. We had Nomadland, as you mentioned, and Mank won, and then the 2 lead actors. So we had Chadwick and Carey Mulligan. We need to talk about that.
And I know exactly how it happened in hindsight.
We had Francis in 4th place, which is interesting. Okay, so how did this happen?
Well, we've been talking all season about how this category is so divided that whoever wins could win with like 21, 22, 23% of the vote. And who won? The star of the Best Picture winner. Mm-hmm. So in a field where if there had been a decisive front runner anywhere else, it probably wouldn't have been Francis. But like that category is probably divided enough that with the support Nomadland had, obviously winning picture and director, that she had just enough votes on that kind of like piggyback support. I love this film. I love the picture. I love the direction. I love Francis, to overcome all that divided support for the other 4 women. So that in hindsight, I don't think I would have gone back and predicted her in hindsight, because I still think if that was going to happen, that would have happened at another award before. Like if they, if the category is that divided, she could have won Critics' Choice. She could have won the Golden Globe. She could have won SAG. But yeah, I think that's what it ended up being. They like Nomadland, and the category is so divided that she had just enough support to win. I'd be very interested in seeing the vote totals in that category. It would be fascinating.
She's now on this very elite list of people who've won 3 Oscars, and she actually won a 4th as well for producing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
she's only the second, so she's ahead of Meryl because she won her 3rd as a lead. Meryl only has 2 Best Actress Oscars and 1 supporting, so the only other woman in this club is Katharine Hepburn, who has 4, all for lead. So really, I love her performance in Nomadland, so I don't begrudge her that, but it's I do wish that either she hadn't won for 3 Billboards, or that Carrie could have won, or Viola could have made history for Best Actress, especially because Frances McDormand already won producing for Nomadland, and we already knew she had won producing by the time she won Best Actress, so it was even more of an anticlimax.
I really wanted Carrie, because Carrie, for me, gave the best performance, but I also would have loved Viola because Viola wants it so bad, and you could just tell.
And she's gonna get it. She's gonna get it.
Hopefully.
If Ma Rainey's had been a Best Picture nominee, I think she would have had a better shot of winning Best Actress for this movie. I really do think it was like Daniel said, and that's what I kept kind of thinking about when I was trying to predict the Best Actress winner. I was like, okay, it's got to be either Carrie or Frances, because they're in 2 movies that we're sure that they're watching. And ultimately, it just came down to, well, of course, they like Nomadland the best. It won Best Picture. And I think that most people who have this love for Nomadland, it comes down to Chloe Zhao, Frances McDormand. So of course, like, those 2 people were going to win Oscars for this movie. Now, I mean, they won it regardless because they were both producers on the movie. But, it's the same kind of thing with Bong Joon-ho last year, where he won everything that he was nominated for, basically. They just like...
Or Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu for Birdman, the year when... the year I got 23 out of 24. I don't know if I've mentioned that today or in the last
several
hour.
Times.
But a lot of people thought that was such a divided year. People thought that, okay, they're going to give Richard Linklater something, and they're going to give Wes Anderson something. And I was looking at the field, and I was like, no, it makes sense. They're going to give it picture. They're going to give it director. And based on previous awards that I'd seen and support, I'm like, they're probably going to give it screenplay too. And that's what they ended up doing. Sometimes when they like you, they like you.
Well, what's so fascinating too is that Nomadland did not sweep, because it didn't win screenplay. It didn't win cinematography, like we said.
It didn't win
editing was a little on the fence, but it didn't win that either. But the 3
that was
awards,
probably the least likely award to win. Editing was just the thank you for coming. Nomadland, that was the one it was not going to win.
Yeah, but the 3 wins that it got, it's like, okay, that makes total sense, because it's like the 2 things that were the most praised about this movie were Frances McDormand's performance and Chloe Zhao's direction. So it just makes total sense that those were the 3 prizes that it won. I'm kicking myself because after BAFTA, I put Frances at number 1. But then I was like, that's crazy. That's never going to happen. So, but
it kind of was crazy. You shouldn't kick yourself too hard.
I'm kicking myself because I literally had Anthony Hopkins until an hour before the ceremony, and then I switched like a fool. Another one I got wrong that I'm okay getting it wrong because I went with my heart was Crip Camp for documentary. Everyone went with Octopus Teacher, so I was willing to lose the point just because I thought Crip Camp was one of the greatest movies of the year. Are there any categories that we haven't talked about that you guys want to before we jump off?
Daniel, anything that jumps out at you?
I'm happy The Promising Young Woman got the writing win. It turned out to go the path of Get Out. This kind of audacious, Oscar-y kind of thriller that wins for writing. And it's sort of almost the exact same situation. Emerald, like Jordan Peele, had writing, directing, and producing nominations, and they got the writing award, and the film won nothing else. So I'm glad it won. Cool that we mentioned her winning Best Song.
That was my favorite.
I got 2 out of 3 of the shorts. I got 2 out of 3 of the shorts, which, as someone who, I didn't have a chance to watch them this year, and I was going by other people's wisdom. 2 out of 3, I'll take it. because I've watched all the shorts in years and I've gotten like 1 out of 3 or none out of 3. So that's pretty good. Trying to think of what else we haven't really talked about. Oh, Soul becomes the 12th film to win, the 12th animated film to win 2 Oscars and no more.
So people are mad online about a couple things. Riz Ahmed presenting best sound to his best
that
sound.
was gross. Yeah. And it was the front runner too.
Editors.
It's like, it wasn't quite as bad when Regina was presenting adapted screenplay, because One Night in Miami was kind of an also ran, so I don't think anyone was like holding out too much hope that it was going to win. But like Riz Ahmed presenting a category where his film is the front runner,
it was actually,
if it had lost,
it was especially awkward because they were sitting right there and they were high-fiving him and, you know, handshaking him, and so that kind of even brought it more to attention. And then people are also a little bit not angry, but they're taking issue with the memoriam being like in fast forward. It was almost like they were rushing.
Yeah, it was a bad. It was not a good presentation.
Well, in all fairness, though, I mean, if they had done it at normal speed, it would have taken like half the ceremony, you know, just to fit in all the names of people
honestly,
who passed away.
They went, like, the problem is not the like they had, like, if it had been 1 speed, it would have been okay. I mean, not the faster speed, because it was literally impossible to even read who the people were at that speed. But if it had been 1 speed, I would have been more okay with it. The fact that they slowed it down for some people, and then they're like, oh yeah, he died, and now these more important people. This is like, I always find that the kind of ranking of the dead that goes on, like when they do something like that, it's incredibly crass. And you know, like, obviously some of them are better known than others, but they're all as well known to their families and their colleagues. So, like, you know, don't literally push the fast forward button on some people's loss and then give everybody else more time. You know, just treat everyone like they were an equal person.
I want to say, like, there's nothing that won tonight that made me groan in terms of like, oh, that was a bad winner. Because I know that there's a lot of, you know, my personal best actress winner was Carey Mulligan, but Frances McDormand winning for Nomadland is an incredible victory. It would have been an incredible victory if anybody in that category won.
And it's also historic because Frances, the first woman ever to win for producing and acting the same film. So,
and like, this is the first film directed by a woman, starring a woman, to win Best Picture. Because even, you know, The Hurt Locker was one of the manliest Best Picture winners of all time. And
Dudes and Bombs is what that alternate title for that film should have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think like basically we've had The Piano, Lady Bird, and Education. The Kids Are All Right. Like, I'm sure that I might be missing some, but those might be
Winter's
the only.
Bone.
Winter's Bone, thank you. Yeah, like not a lot of choices when it comes to that kind of movie, but that's a really significant victory, you know. And I think that, you know, for all of the criticisms that we could have about, you know, who won and who didn't, you know, the fact that there was, you know, such a great collection of movies and, you know, so much diversity amongst the nominees and even amongst some of the winners, it really speaks to just how much the Academy has changed and how much the industry as a whole has changed. Because like this kind of group of winners would have been basically unthinkable, you know, just like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So
imagine 10 years ago, like the year of the King's Speech or something, like the idea of a film like Nomadland not only winning Best Picture but steamrolling to Best Picture. Like it's the juggernaut. It was the it was the Titanic of this year.
And like I came this close to switching to predict Trial of Chicago 7, because even I was like, oh come on, there's no like there
the
must be.
Runner never wins anymore.
Yeah, it never wins. Like this is the first time since basically Argo that a movie has, you know, won all these different things. I guess 12 Years a Slave you could argue as well, but that had some really close competition.
Yeah, that was close.
Gravity.
They tied with Gravity at the Producers Guild. So
right.
It was kind of, you know, it wasn't a sure thing. I think that year I was actually predicting Gravity because I'm like, it's going to win the most Oscars. It's going to win director. You know, so but yeah.
So, you know, that was the year I got 23 out of 24, just to brag.
Oh,
That was
gosh.
the.
And I've never gotten that close. Maybe next year. Well,
Unless
let's
they
wrap up
remove
with
some
our
categories,
final.
then you'll have to settle for like 22.
Let's wrap up with some of our final thoughts. I'll start. I just want to say thank God Frances was there. She has not been showing up to any of these award shows, and I was worried. I think before the Oscars started, we didn't even know if she was coming or not. And I remember, I think it was Chris Beecham who's like, "Oh my gosh, she's actually there." So thank you for showing up, Frances. Anthony Hopkins did not show up, so you can
They
imagine.
literally
how
would have
upset I am
gone to
about
him,
that.
and he didn't show up
Yeah.
for his first Oscar in 30 years.
And Daniel, what are your final thoughts on the ceremony, the winners, losers, whatever you wanted to end with?
Final thoughts on the ceremony. I liked the ceremony format. I like the format. I strongly dislike a few of the choices, like, just no clips at all for a lot of things, and then taking up so much time with, like I said, like, my dog, helped me edit this scene, and and it was just like so much of that when we could have actually seen more of the films, even though the clips that we got for Best Picture were mostly really great, although the clip they chose for Promising Young Woman was kind of terrible.
It was awful.
It was one of the few that maybe they could play on network television.
But they could have played, they play the McLovin scene, the Christopher Mintz-Plasse scene, in a lot of places to promote the film. It has dialogue that you can use. It's not like an explicit scene. It's very thematically tied to what the whole movie's about. And it's a good scene in and out of context. That's a perfect, like, just show that one. Just show that one. It's so frustrating. People see Promising Young Woman and then see that scene. And also the last thing about the producing,
almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing about the producing that I think they now regret is they thought they were going to engineer a moment at the end of the show with Chadwick Boseman winning posthumously, and it didn't happen. They got lucky with Riz Ahmed opening the envelope and reading Sound of Metal, because they arranged that there too. But like that I also found in hindsight very crass, and it ultimately shot them in the face, because the night ended with such a whimper after Nomadland won Best Picture like 20 minutes earlier.
Yeah. And Zach, what are your final thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where they were going with that, putting the acting categories last. I almost think to myself, maybe they didn't even, maybe they weren't necessarily trying to manufacture a moment with Chadwick. They just kind of figured, well, I mean, normal people like the actors the best. They tune in for the celebrities. So let's just, do that. I don't know whose decision that was, but it was one of the few criticisms that I had of the ceremony overall. I liked the fact that they really took the whole Oscars as a movie thing to heart and shot it in a different way and approached it in a different way than any other live television broadcast that I've ever seen. And while there are things like, yes, I would have liked more clips. Yes, I would have liked to have Best Picture last, as always. I think overall, considering how strange this year was and how we all just kind of expected the Oscars were going to be on Zoom, this was a really good ceremony. And
as long as no one ends up getting COVID, we find out.
I know.
Exactly. I
mean, a
mean,
new variant is going to evolve and mutate specifically at that Oscar event. And all of the vaccines were for naught.
And by the way, I mean, can Glenn Close win Best Supporting Actress next year for her performance as
yes, for the butt.
For the butt, yeah.
Oh, her dance.
I just loved that she was sitting at
two other things
table.
that
I loved that she was sitting
ahead.
at the same table as Daniel Kaluuya. You're like, what did they talk about the whole time?
The butt, clearly. The two other things I wanted to mention that I just remembered before signing off. One, the intro of the entire show. Put Steven Soderbergh, please put Regina King in a heist movie tomorrow. And two, one category that we didn't talk about that we missed that I had such a great moment and such an emotional moment was Thomas Winterberg accepting foreign film for another round. And it's so frustrating that the director doesn't actually technically win the Oscar for foreign language film. It goes nebulously to the country. he should have an Oscar for that achievement, and so should every director of an international feature. So.
And going off of that, I do want to like two things. Number one, I love the way that they presented the Best Director award with Bong Joon-ho coming back and making it about, you know, what directing means to these directors, and that Sharon Choi was there as well. I mean, she's such great. A goddess.
That was a good use of that device of like a little bit about each director. And especially Emerald Fennell's like, yeah, I just want to make movies about murder. It was fantastic.
But the thing that I loved best about this presentation, and I'm glad you brought up Winterberg's acceptance speech, because a moment like that would have been really difficult to pull off at the regular kind of Oscars, because they are always playing people off after 30 seconds.
Played him off before he got to that, yeah.
Yes, and I love the fact that they allowed the winners to take time to give these beautiful speeches, and you know, not just like thanking people furiously as an orchestra plays them off, but to really talk about what these movies meant to them. I mean, Chloe Zhao's acceptance speech was so beautiful. I was crying, you know, in the middle of it, where she talked about just seeing the beauty in people. Like it so much sums up what makes Nomadland such a special movie. And I'm so glad that we got that moment. I love Frances McDormand's speech for Best Picture, where she was encouraging people to go see the movie on the biggest screen possible, and to
not just her movie, all the movies. That's a very Frances McDormand moment. It was really great.
So I know that everyone wants things to go back to normal for a sense, but I really do hope that when the Oscars do go back to quote unquote normal, I hope that they hold on to some of these traditions, because I think that it's a really good idea to just make it about celebrating these winners, and not just trying to, you know, cram everything into a condensed 3-hour ceremony.
And just really think outside the box, you know, because these are the things that made a lot of award shows, or the better thing, but you know, because a lot of award shows, as we know, have really botched the sort of pandemic, you know, versions of their shows. But the shows that did it right and the good aspects of it are stuff that they could have always been doing or incorporating into their events, but like they've all been so locked into this, like, okay, put everyone in the Dolby Theater or the Staples Center, and then you have X amount of performances, and then you give awards here and there. It's like, no, when you actually have to rethink what the award show is, what the structure of it is, you can make it really good and special in a way that maybe it's like we've lost in recent years.
Yeah, be creative. You know, like I was so excited to see what they were going to do with this. And even though some things didn't work, like we've talked about, it felt really, it was the first time I've watched the Oscars, maybe in my entire life, where I've thought, I really am excited to see what's going to happen next. Even when like Rita Moreno came out to present Best Picture, where they still had the acting categories, like just that moment of what the hell is happening right now really did feel exciting, right? Not saying they should do that again, but it felt exciting to watch it, because you really did think like, what is going to happen next?
I'd say with director being presented in the first, 30 minutes or so. I also didn't realize until right now that there was no awkward presenter conversations where they're trying to be, friendly and chummy with each other. And is that because all of the presenters were just solo? I can't think of any that were double presenters.
I think they're all solo, yeah.
And that's probably like partly a pandemic thing, I would guess, because it's like, the fewer people you can have put together that you don't need, like the better.
Like I noticed when the presenter would say, the winner is blah, 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 they would quickly run down and kind of hide in the corner. I think Renee Zellweger was caught on camera doing that, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. And you can go make your predictions for the Emmy nominations, the Grammy nominations, the MTV Movie Awards, and the Tonys, and American Idol, The Masked Singer, and we're going to add more and more events as they come about.
MTV Movie Awards, where Carey Mulligan could yet win. He's nominated. No Frances McDormand at the MTV Movie Awards.
She's in her van. Okay, thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.